Imagine ordering a package from a distant land, something you have desired for years, something that would transform your entire existence. You pay the full price without hesitation. You track its journey across oceans and continents with growing anticipation, and finally, gloriously, it arrives at your doorstep. The delivery driver rings the bell. The package sits there gleaming in the morning light, containing everything you have ever wanted. But you never open the door. You peer through the curtains, you know it is there, you believe it is there, yet you remain frozen inside your house, waiting for the package to somehow materialize through the walls. Days pass, and eventually, that precious cargo is returned to sender. This, with profound and uncomfortable accuracy, is exactly how most people attempt to manifest wealth into their lives. They engage the magnificent powers of their mind to draw riches toward them. They visualize with passion, they believe with fervor, they align their thoughts with abundance, and they succeed in bringing fortune to their very doorstep. But they fail utterly to use their physical being to open the door and receive it. Over a century ago, Wallace D. Wattles identified this tragic pattern as the critical missing link in the science of getting rich, a distinction so vital yet so overlooked that it separates those who dream of wealth from those who hold it in their hands. The profound difference between the power that draws and the power that receives. There exists a particular kind of frustration that burns hotter than any other. A specific despair reserved for those who have done everything right in their minds, yet see nothing manifest in their material world. You have visualized the bank account overflowing. You have felt the emotions of abundance coursing through your being. You have held the unwavering belief that wealth is yours. And yet when you open your wallet, when you check your balance, when you survey the landscape of your physical reality, there is no transformation. The same scarcity stares back at you with mocking indifference. It feels in the most painful sense as though the universe itself is ghosting you, as though some cosmic force has read your heartfelt requests and deliberately chosen to ignore them, leaving you suspended in a purgatory between the wealth you can see so clearly in your imagination and the poverty that persists stubbornly in your experience. We have been conditioned by a fundamental misunderstanding, a seductive but incomplete interpretation of universal law that has led millions astray. We have come to believe that if we simply think hard enough, if we concentrate with sufficient intensity, if we meditate with enough devotion, money will somehow materialize in our pockets through purely ethereal means. We imagine that thought alone can bridge the gap between the invisible and the visible, that mental energy can substitute entirely for physical engagement. But Wallace D. Wattles was not a mere dreamer or wishful philosopher. He was a scientist of prosperity, a rigorous investigator of the actual mechanics by which wealth transfers from the formless realm into the formed. And his research led him to an inescapable conclusion that he expressed with crystalline clarity. By thought, the thing you want is brought to you. By action, you receive it. This is not poetry, but physics, not metaphor, but mechanism. If you engage only the first half of this equation, while ignoring the second, all your mental labor is wasted, all your visualization is squandered, all your belief amounts to nothing but elaborate fantasy. The promise that extends before you now is nothing less than liberation from this agonizing limbo. Within this teaching lies what can only be called the receiving secret, the specific understanding that transforms you from someone who merely attracts wealth to someone who actually possesses it. This is not about learning to think harder or believe more intensely. You have likely already mastered those arts to a considerable degree. This is about learning the precise nature of physical action that completes the sacred circuit, the particular quality of bodily engagement that swings wide the door of your life and allows the fortune that has been patiently waiting on your threshold to finally cross into your possession. The wealth is already there, standing at your door. The delivery has already been made. You need only learn how to receive it. What you are about to encounter represents the essential bridge between two worlds that have been artificially separated in the minds of seekers for far too long. On one side stands the metaphysical realm, the domain of thought, belief, visualization, and creative mental force, where the formless substance of the universe responds to the patterns of your consciousness. On the other side stands the physical realm, the domain of matter, action, time, and tangible results, where hands grasp objects and feet walk upon solid ground. For generations, teachers have emphasized one realm or the other, creating camps of pure thinkers who never act and pure workers who never think deliberately. Wattles understood that manifestation occurs precisely at the junction where these two realms meet, and he developed a science for navigating that junction with precision. Here is the pact I make with you in this sacred exchange of wisdom. By the time this teaching is complete, you will possess the golden rule of action, the fundamental principle that governs how physical movement translates mental creation into material possession. You will understand not merely that you must act, but how you must act, with what quality of consciousness, with what relationship to time, with what connection to your present circumstances. You will discover how to position your daily existence, the seemingly mundane activities that fill your hours, so that you become a living receiver, perfectly calibrated to catch the gold precisely when it falls from the creative plane into the physical. Your life will become a net woven of purpose, each strand an action performed in the certain way, each intersection a point of potential reception. But I must offer you a warning that will serve as a hook drawing you deeper into this teaching, for there is a trap that ensnares the majority of earnest strivers. There exists a specific type of action that wears the disguise of productive hustle, that mimics the appearance of diligent work, that feels like exactly what you should be doing, yet in reality functions as a jamming signal that locks your door and throws the deadbolt against the very desires you are laboring to receive. The cruel irony is that the harder you engage in this type of action, the more firmly you seal yourself away from your good. Most hard workers, most ambitious souls, most dedicated individuals make this devastating mistake every single day, exhausting themselves in effort that actively repels their prosperity. I will reveal this jamming signal and show you how to recognize it in your own patterns. But that revelation awaits in part 4. For now, if you feel the resonance of this teaching beginning to stir something within you, if you sense that you have been standing at a locked door without knowing how to open it, leave a comment below with the words, "I am ready to receive." Let that declaration be your first action, the first turning of the key. At the heart of Wallace D. Wattles' revolutionary teaching lies a mechanic so elegant in its simplicity, yet so profound in its implications that it restructures entirely how we must approach the acquisition of wealth. This mechanic involves two distinct planes of operation and two corresponding types of force, and unless you understand how they interact, you will remain forever caught between wanting and having, between imagining and possessing. The first plane is what Wattles termed the formless substance, the creative medium that underlies and permeates all physical reality, the thinking stuff from which all things emerge. This is the metaphysical plane, the realm where consciousness operates directly upon the raw material of potential, shaping and directing it according to the patterns held in mind. When you engage in true visualization, when you hold the clear mental image of wealth with faith and gratitude, you are acting upon this formless substance, and you are causing real movement in the invisible architecture of reality. What happens when you think correctly upon the formless substance is nothing short of miraculous, though it operates by law rather than by caprice. Your thought, imbued with purpose and backed by faith, creates what we might call an attraction gradient, a kind of mental gravity that begins to draw the physical manifestations of your desire toward you through the most efficient channels available. Resources begin to shift, circumstances begin to align, people begin to move, opportunities begin to emerge, all orchestrated by an intelligence far greater than your conscious mind can track, all responding to the pattern you have impressed upon the creative medium. This is the drawing power, the magnetic force of thought, and it is absolutely real, absolutely operative, absolutely capable of bringing the wealth you desire to the very threshold of your experience. But here is where the vast majority of manifestors falter. Here is where the teaching has been incomplete and the practice has failed. The second plane of operation is what we might call the personal environment, the physical realm of matter, time, bodies, and actions, the tangible world you navigate with your hands and feet and voice. This plane operates by different rules than the formless, and it requires a different type of engagement. While thought acts upon the creative substance to bring things toward you, action acts upon the personal environment to allow you to actually receive those things. These are not the same function, they are complementary halves of a single process. The formless substance responds to your mind, the physical environment responds to your body. You cannot use thought alone to complete a transaction that requires both planes. Wattles was explicit on this point, and his words deserve to be inscribed in golden letters upon the walls of every seeker's consciousness. You must not rely upon thought alone, paying no attention to personal action. Personal action must supplement thought. Consider the profound implications of this statement. It is not that action is superior to thought, or that thought is inferior to action. Neither is complete without the other. Thought without action is an uncashed check, a written promise that never converts to currency. Action without thought, as we shall see, is blind labor that builds nothing of value. But when thought and action unite in proper relationship, when the drawing power and the receiving power work in concert, you become something extraordinary. You become the meeting point, where thought transforms into thing, the junction where the invisible crosses into the visible, the altar upon which the formless becomes formed. This is not metaphor or poetry. This is the mechanics of how wealth actually manifests, and until you grasp it fully, you will continue to experience the frustration of spiritual effort without material result. The reason this understanding has remained hidden from so many earnest seekers is that modern teaching has fragmented what Wattles presented as a unified science. We have schools of pure thought that dismiss physical action as unnecessary or even counterproductive, teaching that the universe will simply drop abundance into your lap if your vibration is high enough. We have schools of pure action that dismiss mental work as lazy fantasy, insisting that only grinding effort produces results. Both schools are tragically incomplete, and their adherents suffer accordingly, either thinking themselves into inaction or acting themselves into exhausted emptiness. Wattles stood at the integration point and showed us that both forces must be engaged in their proper sequence and relationship. When you understand this mechanic truly, you realize that all your previous efforts were not wasted, but merely incomplete. Every visualization you have performed has had its effect on the formless substance. Every mental image held in faith has created real movement on the creative plane. The wealth you desire has indeed been moving toward you, perhaps for years, responding to your thought, finding its way through invisible channels toward the coordinates of your existence. But if you have not engaged the action component, if you have not provided the receiving mechanism in your personal environment, then that wealth has arrived and found no entry point. It has accumulated at your doorstep, so to speak, and been turned away by a locked door. You have been manifesting more than you know. You have simply not been receiving what you have manifested. This realization should fill you not with regret, but with tremendous excitement and hope. You are not starting from zero. You are starting from a position of accumulated potential. All the mental work you have done has been building a kind of spiritual reservoir of incoming good, and now you are learning how to open the floodgates. The action you engage from this point forward is not action to create what doesn't exist. It is action to receive what already exists, what already waits for you, what has already been drawn to your door by the power of your previous thought. This is why Wattles could be so confident in his promises, why he could assure his readers that results would follow with mathematical certainty. Because once you complete the circuit, once you engage both powers in their proper relationship, the accumulated results must flow through. Think of yourself as a two-handed craftsman working at the loom of destiny. Your left hand operates in the realm of thought, weaving patterns upon the formless substance, calling threads of possibility from the infinite supply and drawing them toward your position. Your right hand operates in the realm of action, receiving those threads as they arrive and incorporating them into the tangible fabric of your physical life. Neither hand can do the work of both. If your left hand weaves while your right hand lies idle, the threads pile up in a useless tangle, beautiful in potential but formless in actuality. If your right hand grasps while your left hand fails to weave, there are no threads to receive, and the hand closes on empty air. But when both hands work in coordinated rhythm, Left hand drawing and right hand receiving, drawing and receiving. The fabric grows before your eyes, wealth becoming visible, manifestation becoming reality. Your body, then, is not an obstacle to your spiritual prosperity, but an essential instrument of it. The physical form you inhabit, which some teachings have encouraged you to transcend or ignore, is actually your receiving apparatus, your mechanism for translating formless wealth into formed possession. Your hands are designed to grasp, your feet to walk toward, your voice to speak the words that open channels, your presence to occupy the space where opportunity arrives. When you act in the physical plane with the consciousness of a receiver rather than a creator, everything changes. You are not trying to force wealth into existence through physical strain. You are simply positioning yourself to accept what thought has already brought near. This is the difference between pushing and receiving, between exhaustion and ease, between struggle and flow. The meeting point where you stand, where thought becomes thing, where the formless becomes formed, is the most powerful position in the universe. It is the position of the creator who has learned to complete their creation, the thinker who has learned to embody their thought, the dreamer who has learned to wake into their dream. This is not a position you must earn through decades of spiritual practice. It is a position you can occupy immediately upon understanding its nature. You step into this position through comprehension and choice, and you remain in it through the continuous coordination of your thought and your action. Every moment offers you the opportunity to occupy this junction, to be the bridge between worlds, to serve as the channel through which the invisible becomes visible. Let this understanding settle deeply into your awareness. You are not asking the universe to do something for you that you are unwilling to participate in. You are not requesting wealth while refusing to extend your hands to receive it. You are entering into partnership with creative forces, contributing your essential component to a cooperative process that cannot complete without you. This is not burden, but privilege, not obligation, but opportunity. The universe has agreed to do its part, to bring the wealth you desire to your door, to orchestrate circumstances and align possibilities in your favor. Your agreement is to do your part, to be present, to be active, to be ready to receive. When both parties fulfill their agreement, the transaction completes, and wealth transfers from the formless realm into your physical possession. This is the foundation upon which everything else rests. Without this understanding, all techniques are hollow, all strategies are impotent, all effort is misdirected. With this understanding, every action becomes meaningful, every moment becomes opportunity, every day becomes a continuous receiving ceremony in which the wealth of the universe flows into your waiting hands. You have been preparing for this understanding through all your previous seeking, and now it has arrived at your door. Will you open the door and receive it? To grasp the necessity of action with even greater clarity, consider the ancient and venerable figure of the fisherman, for his craft illustrates perfectly the relationship between drawing power and receiving power. Imagine him upon the waters at dawn, a master of his trade, understanding intimately the laws that govern his success. He knows that certain baits attract certain fish, that certain waters hold abundant life, that certain conditions favor the catch. With this knowledge, he prepares his hook with precisely the right lure, casts his line into precisely the right location, and waits with the confidence born of understanding. The bait does its work magnificently. It sends signals into the depths, it attracts attention, it draws the fish inexorably toward the boat. This is the power of thought made tangible, the drawing power in action. The fish respond, they swim upward, they follow the irresistible summons, they arrive in multitudes at the very location where the fisherman waits. But now observe what happens if the fisherman, content with his successful drawing, simply stares at the water. The fish are there, circling just beneath the surface, drawn by the bait he so skillfully prepared. They have responded to his call. They have arrived at his location. They are as close to being caught as fish can be while remaining in the water. Yet if the fisherman does not lift his net, does not engage his hands, does not perform the physical act of receiving, he will starve surrounded by abundance. The fish cannot jump into the boat by themselves. They lack the capacity to complete the transaction from their side. They have done everything within their power by responding to the draw. The final act must come from the fisherman. The net represents action, the physical mechanism of receiving, and without it, all the skill in baiting, all the wisdom in locating, all the patience in waiting amounts to precisely nothing. This analogy illuminates the tragic situation of so many visualizers, believers, and positive thinkers who cannot understand why their mental work produces no material results. They are master baiters, if you will forgive the phrase, experts in the art of drawing. They send out the most attractive mental signals, they create the most compelling visions, they generate the most powerful emotional frequencies, and the universe responds beautifully. Opportunities are drawn toward them like fish to bait. Resources begin swimming in their direction. People who could help them become inexplicably interested in their situation. The drawing has worked perfectly. The fish are circling the boat. But these same masters of thought sit in motionless contemplation, expecting the fish to somehow leap aboard without any assistance, waiting for wealth to materialize without any physical participation, and they starve in bewilderment while abundance swirls just beneath the surface of their lives. The fisherman's net is not a complicated instrument, but it must be used. It must be lifted from the boat, cast outward at the right moment, drawn back inward with deliberate purpose. There is timing involved, there is physical effort required, there is a moment of decisive action that separates catching from merely attracting. This moment cannot be delegated to the universe. It cannot be accomplished through additional thought. It cannot be bypassed through more intense belief. The net must enter the water, surround the fish and lift them from their element into yours. This is the action that Wattles insisted upon, not as a contradiction to the power of thought, but as its necessary completion. Thought calls the fish to the boat. Action lifts the fish into the boat. Both are essential. Neither alone is sufficient. Consider how profoundly this changes your understanding of your current situation. If wealth has not yet manifested in your physical experience, despite sincere and sustained mental effort, the answer is not that you have thought incorrectly, or believed insufficiently, or visualized with inadequate clarity. The answer may well be that you have been an extraordinary fisherman of thought who simply has not lifted the net. The fish are there, drawn by your mental work, circling in the waters of your life, waiting to be received. You do not need to learn to draw more effectively. You need to learn to receive what you have already drawn. This is a far simpler problem than you may have imagined, and its solution lies in understanding the nature and application of the receiving mechanism. The net of action, unlike the bait of thought, does not require sophistication or complexity to function. It requires only that it be used, that it be cast, that it be lifted. A simple net wielded with consistent purpose will catch more fish than an elaborate net left idle in the boat. This is crucial because many seekers delay their action waiting for the perfect strategy, the optimal technique, the ideal circumstances. They imagine that the receiving mechanism must be as refined and subtle as the drawing mechanism, and they spend years crafting mental nets that never touch the water. Wattles would shake his head at such confusion. The net needs only to be present and active. The fish have already been drawn. The abundance is already circling. Your action, however simple, becomes the receiving mechanism the moment you engage it with conscious purpose. What makes the fisherman's net effective is not its beauty but its presence in the water at the moment the fish arrive. A net lying in the bottom of the boat cannot catch anything regardless of its construction. A net held above the water cannot catch anything regardless of the skill of its wielder. The net must be where the fish are, and it must be active when the fish are present. Similarly, your physical action must be engaged in your personal environment, must be present in the field of your daily existence, must be active at the time when opportunities arrive. You cannot receive from a position of inaction any more than the fisherman can catch fish from his bed at home. You must be in the boat, net in hand, ready to complete the transaction that thought has initiated. This readiness is not the same as frantic activity or desperate striving. The skilled fisherman does not thrash about wildly in the water, scattering the fish he has drawn. He moves with calm deliberation, with patient confidence, with the certainty that his bait has worked and his only task now is to receive. He is alert but not anxious, active but not agitated, engaged but not exhausted. This quality of readiness is precisely what Wattles taught regarding action, a subject we shall explore in greater depth. For now, understand that the net must be used, that the action must be taken, that the receiving mechanism must be engaged, or else all the drawing in the world produces nothing but circling potential that eventually swims away. The fish, having responded to the draw, will not wait forever. There is a window of opportunity, a period during which they circle within reach, available to be received. If the net is not lifted during this window, the fish lose interest. Other attractions call them away. The moment passes, and what was available becomes unavailable. This is why Wattles placed such emphasis on acting now, on immediate engagement, on refusing to postpone the receiving action. The opportunities drawn to you by thought have a limited patience. They will not circle indefinitely waiting for you to decide to receive them. They are living things, in a sense, with their own trajectories and destinations, and if you do not complete the circuit while they are present, they continue their journey to someone who will. Every time you engage in deliberate, conscious action within your personal environment, you are casting your net into the water. Every task performed with awareness of its receiving function, every activity undertaken with the understanding that it positions you to accept incoming good, every movement made with the knowledge that you are completing a circuit initiated by thought, these constitute the lifting of the net. You need not know exactly which action will catch which fish. That is not your business to know. Your business is to keep the net in the water, to maintain your presence in the active field of receiving, to ensure that when opportunities arrive, you are there to grasp them, rather than sitting in contemplation while they swim past. The fisherman does not argue with the fish about whether they should jump into his boat. He accepts that his role is to use the net. The fisherman does not resent the fact that fish cannot climb aboard unaided. He accepts the nature of fish and adjusts his actions accordingly. The fisherman does not complain that drawing and receiving are two different activities. He masters both and applies them in sequence. So must you accept the division of labor in the manifestation process. Thought will do its work magnificently if you let it, drawing wealth and opportunity toward you with reliable power. Action will do its work perfectly if you engage it, receiving what thought has drawn with practical efficiency. Your task is to work both sides of this equation without confusion, without resentment, without neglecting either in favor of the other. The unshakable logic of this teaching becomes clear when you consider the alternative. If thought alone were sufficient to receive, then the universe would be populated with wealthy thinkers who never moved from their meditation cushions. This is evidently not the case. If action alone were sufficient to draw, then the universe would reward physical labor in direct proportion to its intensity, and the hardest workers would invariably be the richest. This is equally not the case. What we observe in reality is that those who prosper combine thought and action in a particular relationship, drawing with their minds and receiving with their bodies, operating on both planes simultaneously. This observation is not philosophy but fact, not theory but evidence. Wattles simply articulated what the universe demonstrates through countless examples. You must draw and you must receive, and these are different functions requiring different instruments. As you absorb this logic, feel the pieces of your understanding clicking into place. The frustration you may have experienced begins to make sense, not as cosmic rejection, but as incomplete process. The wealth that seemed to elude you despite your mental efforts was not failing to arrive, it was failing to be received. The door was locked from the inside. But now you hold the key. Now you understand why the net must be lifted. Now you recognize that action is not a betrayal of faith, but its fulfillment. The fisherman who lifts his net is not demonstrating doubt that the fish were drawn. He is demonstrating faith that the fish are there. Your action, too, becomes an expression of faith rather than doubt, a physical declaration that you believe your thought has worked and you are ready to receive its fruits. The quality of consciousness you bring to your action determines entirely whether that action functions as a receiving mechanism or as something else entirely. This point cannot be overemphasized, for it separates the action that Wattles prescribed from the meaningless busyness that exhausts so many strivers. The required state of mind, the essential inner posture you must adopt, can be described with two words that form a powerful unity: alert readiness. You must be alert, aware, present, conscious of what you are doing and why you are doing it. and you must be ready, prepared, positioned, open to receive what is coming, rather than frantically trying to create what is not yet there. These two qualities combine to create the mental state in which action becomes reception rather than mere motion. Alert readiness is fundamentally different from the desperate striving that characterizes so much human effort. When you act from desperation, you are operating from a position of lack, pushing against reality to force it into a shape it does not yet want to take. You are attempting to make wealth happen through sheer effort, to manufacture abundance through physical force, to compel the universe to deliver through the intensity of your labor. This is what Wattles called operating on the competitive plane, where you see wealth as limited and believe you must fight others to claim your share. Action taken from this state does not receive, it grasps, it clutches, it strains, and paradoxically, it repels. The desperate grabber sends a signal of poverty into the universe and attracts more conditions that justify desperation. Alert readiness, in contrast, operates from a position of anticipated abundance. You are not trying to make something happen. You are preparing to receive what is happening. You are not fighting against a stingy universe. You are positioning yourself to accept what a generous universe is delivering. This is operation on the creative plane, where you understand that wealth flows from an infinite source, and your task is simply to open yourself to that flow. Action taken from this state has an entirely different quality: a relaxed confidence, a patient expectancy, a grateful receptivity that draws good toward it and allows that good to land. The alert receiver sends a signal of abundance into the universe and attracts circumstances that justify that abundance. Examine your own actions with ruthless honesty and identify the state from which they typically arise. When you work at your job, are you laboring from desperation, counting the hours until escape, resenting the effort, feeling like a victim of economic necessity? Or are you working from alert readiness, understanding that this work is your current receiving mechanism, performing it with full presence, recognizing that opportunities for greater wealth will be delivered through these very activities? The external actions might look identical to an observer, but their inner quality is opposite, and their results will be opposite as well. Desperate action clogs the channel. Ready action opens it. Desperate action exhausts without return. Ready action energizes and receives. The transition from desperation to readiness is not a matter of circumstance, but of understanding. You do not need your circumstances to improve before you can act from readiness. You need only understand that your circumstances are the current delivery route for your greater good. This is a profound shift in perspective that changes everything without changing anything external. You begin to see your present situation not as an obstacle to your dreams, but as the very mechanism through which your dreams will arrive. You begin to see your daily tasks not as meaningless drudgery, but as the physical actions that complete the manifestation circuit. You begin to see yourself not as a victim laboring in hostile conditions, but as a receiver positioned in the exact location where your wealth will be delivered. Alert readiness requires that you stay awake within your actions, that you do not perform them as an automaton while your mind wanders elsewhere. When you write an email, you are present in the writing, aware that this communication could be the specific act that connects you to your next opportunity. When you shake someone's hand, you are present in the contact, recognizing that this person could be the channel through which your fortune flows. When you perform the most mundane task in your current work, you are present in its execution, understanding that excellence in small things demonstrates your readiness for excellence in large things. This presence is not exhausting, it is energizing. It transforms dead time into living reception, converts meaningless activity into meaningful positioning. The opposite of alert readiness is mechanical going through the motions, the state in which your body performs actions while your mind is absent, preoccupied with worry about the future or regret about the past. In this state, you could have the greatest opportunity of your life standing right in front of you and fail to recognize it because you are not present to perceive it. The delivery truck could arrive at your door and you would not hear its horn because you are lost in anxious fantasy about deliveries that might never come. This is why Wattles insisted on action in the present moment, action performed with full consciousness, action that maintains your awareness in the only time frame where receiving can actually occur. Readiness also implies completion, the state of being genuinely prepared to handle what arrives. If you visualize great wealth but have not prepared your consciousness to receive it, have not educated yourself about managing it, have not expanded your self-concept to accommodate it, then you are not truly ready. The universe may bring opportunities to your door, but if you lack the readiness to recognize and respond to them, they pass you by. This is why the inner work and the outer work must proceed together. Your mental preparation creates the drawing power and also prepares you to receive. Your physical action creates the receiving mechanism and also expands your capacity. The two types of preparation feed each other in a beautiful spiral of increasing readiness. Cultivating alert readiness is a practice, not an achievement. You do not arrive at a permanent state of perfect readiness and maintain it effortlessly forever. Rather, you return to readiness again and again throughout your day, catching yourself when you drift into desperation or unconsciousness and gently redirecting yourself back to alert receptivity. Each time you catch yourself and redirect, you strengthen the habit. Each time you perform an action from true readiness, you deepen the groove. Over time, alert readiness becomes your default state, and the quality of your actions transforms accordingly. But it begins with awareness of the distinction and the commitment to practice it. The person operating from alert readiness is recognizable by a certain quality of presence, a certain light in the eyes, a certain engagement with the immediate moment. They do not appear frantic or hurried even when they are busy. They do not appear distracted or disconnected even when they face challenges. They seem to be exactly where they are, doing exactly what they are doing, fully available to the present moment and whatever it contains. This quality is magnetic. It draws opportunities and people toward it. Others sense, perhaps without understanding why, that this is a person who is ready, who can be trusted with more, who will handle well whatever arrives. And so more arrives because the universe always flows toward readiness. As you move through this teaching and into your daily life, hold this understanding at the forefront of your consciousness. The quality of your action matters more than the quantity. 1 hour of alert, ready action accomplishes more receiving than 8 hours of desperate, unconscious toil. You do not need to work harder, you need to work more consciously. You do not need to do more, you need to be more present in what you do. This is not a philosophy of laziness, but a science of effectiveness. The prepared receiver catches what the frantic chaser misses, not because the receiver is lucky, but because the receiver is ready. Be ready, be alert, and watch how quickly your actions begin to bear fruit. The execution of receiving action follows 3 rules that Wattles articulated with characteristic precision, and these rules must be understood not as suggestions, but as laws governing the effective operation of your physical receiving mechanism. Violate these rules and your action becomes ineffective, regardless of how much effort you expend. Follow these rules and your action becomes irresistible, drawing wealth through your life with the certainty of water flowing downhill. The first and most urgent of these rules addresses the question of when you must act, and the answer may challenge everything you think you know about timing and opportunity. You must act now, not later, not when conditions improve, not when you feel more prepared, not when the stars align or the economy shifts or your circumstances change. Now, in this present moment, in this immediate situation, with these current resources. The insistence on present action is not arbitrary urgency but metaphysical necessity. You cannot act in the past. That moment is gone, and action there is impossible, regardless of how much you might wish to change what has already occurred. You cannot act in the future. That moment has not yet arrived, and action there is equally impossible, regardless of how clearly you might envision what you will someday do. The only moment in which action is possible, the only time frame in which receiving can occur, is this present instant in which you actually exist. Consider the delivery metaphor that opened this teaching. The package arrives now, in this moment, at this door. If you wait for a better moment to open the door, you miss the delivery. If you plan to open the door tomorrow or next week, or when you feel ready, the package sits in the rain, gets returned, disappears back into the system. The universe operates in the eternal present, and its deliveries arrive in the only moment that exists. You must be active in that same moment, present in the same now, ready to receive in the only time frame where receiving is possible. Every postponement of action is a missed delivery, a package returned, an opportunity allowed to swim away. Wattles expressed this with unmistakable clarity. Do not wait for a change of environment before you act. Get a change of environment by acting. This sentence contains a complete philosophy of transformation. The vast majority of people operate under the assumption that they must wait for external conditions to be favorable before they begin acting toward their dreams. They wait for more money before they start the business, for more time before they begin the creative project, for more support before they make the change. But this logic is precisely backward. The changed environment comes as a result of action, not as a prerequisite to it. By acting in your present environment, you trigger the changes that create a new environment. By waiting for the new environment, you ensure that it never arrives. The person who waits for the right time is actually broadcasting to the universe a signal of unreadiness. They are saying, in effect, that they do not trust the drawing power of their thought, that they do not believe the fish have been attracted, that they need additional evidence before they will lift the net. This doubt undermines the entire process. The universe has responded to their thought by bringing opportunities near, but the person's refusal to act sends a contradictory signal, creating confusion in the manifestation field. Act now, and you send a clear signal of faith and readiness. Wait, and you send a murky signal of doubt and hesitation. The universe responds to clarity. It delivers to those who demonstrate through immediate action that they are truly prepared to receive. The second rule of receiving action addresses the question of where you must act. And again, the answer may overturn your expectations. You must act on your present business, in your current situation, through the channels you already occupy. You do not need to abandon your present position to receive your future fortune. You do not need to start something entirely novel or pursue something dramatically strange. The opportunities for your greater life will be delivered through the structures of your existing life, transformed and elevated by the power of your consciousness, but not replaced until replacement is the natural next step. This is enormously important and frequently misunderstood. Many seekers imagine that receiving their dreams requires them to leap into entirely new circumstances, to quit their jobs, to change their locations, to revolutionize their activities before abundance can find them. This belief leads to premature action, to jumping before the net is ready, to abandoning the receiving position before the delivery arrives. Wattles taught that you open the door by engaging fully with your current situation, but engaging with it in what he called the certain way. Your present job, your present business, your present relationships, these are the delivery channels. The universe knows your address. It knows where you are. It brings the packages to your current location. Your task is not to change locations, but to be actively, consciously receiving at your current location. Acting on your present business means bringing the full power of your conscious, faith-filled action to whatever you are currently doing. If you are an employee, you perform your employee duties with excellence and presence, understanding that your employer, your colleagues, your daily tasks are all potential channels for opportunity. If you run a business, you engage with that business fully, recognizing that through its transactions and relationships, your larger success will be delivered. If you are in a situation that seems to have no connection to your dreams, you engage with it anyway, knowing that the connection exists in ways your conscious mind cannot yet perceive. The delivery route is established. Your task is to keep the door open along the entire route. This does not mean you will remain in your present situation forever. As you act upon it in the certain way, as you bring consciousness and excellence to your current position, that position will transform, expand, or be naturally replaced by something greater. The change of circumstances comes through the action, not before it. By filling your present place with excellence, you create pressure for expansion. By being extraordinary in ordinary circumstances, you attract extraordinary circumstances. The universe does not ask you to be patient forever. It asks you to be active now. The activity in your present situation is the very force that transforms that situation into something greater. The third rule of receiving action reveals the mechanism by which small actions accumulate into large results, and it is perhaps the most practical of the three. Every action you take must be a success in itself. Not every action must produce a visible material result, but every action must be performed with such consciousness, such faith, such excellence, that it accomplishes its purpose of keeping the channel open and maintaining your position as a receiver. When you put the power of faith into every email you send, every handshake you offer, every task you complete, you are building what might be called a magnetic net, an accumulating field of receptive energy that draws and catches with increasing power. The principle here is cumulative. If every individual act is a success, the total result must be a success. This is mathematical certainty applied to manifestation. You cannot have a string of successful actions that somehow add up to failure. If each action opens the channel a little, the sum of all actions opens it fully. If each action demonstrates readiness a little, the sum of all actions demonstrates complete readiness. If each action receives a little of the incoming good, the sum of all actions receives it all. But this cumulative success requires that you not allow any action to be a failure, that you not perform any task with doubt, half-heartedness, or unconsciousness. Making every action a success does not mean forcing every action to produce your ultimate goal. It means ensuring that every action fulfills its function in the receiving process. An email sent with full presence and genuine care is a success, whether or not it produces an immediate response. A task completed with excellence and attention is a success, whether or not it leads directly to your desired outcome. A conversation engaged with authentic interest and conscious availability is a success, whether or not it seems to advance your position. These successes accumulate below the surface of visible results, building the net, strengthening the magnet, widening the door, until suddenly the accumulated force breaks through into visible manifestation. Beyond the three rules of formal action lies another dimension of receiving that operates more subtly but no less powerfully. This is the dimension of intuition, of hunches, of sudden urges to do something that seems unrelated to your logical plans. These impulses are not random. They are the universe ringing your doorbell, signaling that a delivery is imminent if you will simply respond. Wattles understood that the formless intelligence communicates with us not only through circumstances, but through our own inner knowing, and the person who wishes to receive fully must learn to recognize and act upon this communication. When you get a sudden prompting to reach out to someone you haven't spoken to in years, that is not random mental noise. It is the universe indicating that this person is part of your receiving channel. When you feel an inexplicable urge to visit a certain place, to attend a certain event, to explore a certain possibility, these feelings are not accidental. They are guidance toward your receiving position. When something within you says now, here, this, and the logical mind cannot explain why, you are being given directions to where your delivery waits. The receiver who acts on these promptings positions themselves exactly where the abundance is flowing. The receiver who dismisses them as irrational remains standing where the flow has moved past. This requires developing trust in your own inner guidance, which is actually trust in the universal intelligence that is orchestrating your good. The formless substance that has responded to your thought knows the most efficient pathways to bring your desire into your physical experience. It can see connections you cannot see, can anticipate circumstances you cannot anticipate, can guide you to the right place at the right time through the subtle language of intuition. But this guidance is useless if you do not follow it. You can have the most sophisticated GPS system in the world, but if you ignore its directions, you will remain lost. Acting on intuition requires a certain courage because the promptings often make no logical sense. The rational mind, which operates on past data and visible evidence, cannot comprehend guidance that comes from a higher perspective. It will argue, resist, explain away, and counsel hesitation. You must learn to recognize the difference between the voice of true intuition and the voice of fearful ego, between the prompting of the universal mind and the resistance of the small self. Generally, intuitive guidance feels clear, quiet, and certain, even when it seems irrational. Ego resistance feels noisy, anxious, and filled with reasons. Learn to recognize these different qualities and follow the quiet certainty. When the doorbell rings, you do not ask for a committee decision about whether to answer it. You do not convene a meeting to analyze the pros and cons of opening the door. You do not postpone the response until you have more information about who might be standing there. You simply get up and answer because that is what you do when someone rings the bell. Similarly, when intuition prompts you to action, the appropriate response is immediate movement, not prolonged deliberation. The delivery will not wait forever. The opportunity will not knock repeatedly until you are ready to admit it. Answer the door when the bell rings and receive what has been brought to you. This responsiveness to intuition is the capstone of the receiving practice. You have the 3 rules of deliberate action. Act now. Act on your present business. Make every act a success. You have the state of alert readiness that makes your action effective, and now you have the responsiveness to inner guidance that allows the universe to direct your action to its most fruitful application. Together, these elements create a complete receiving mechanism, a system for catching every delivery, for opening every door, for accepting every good that your thought has drawn toward you. Miss any element, and your receiving is incomplete. Integrate all elements, and your receiving becomes total. We come now to the revelation promised at the beginning of this teaching, the exposure of the fatal mistakes that transform action from a receiving mechanism into a jamming signal. These errors are so common, so widespread, so deeply embedded in cultural assumptions about work and effort that you have almost certainly been making them, probably for years, possibly without the slightest awareness that anything was wrong. They explain why hard workers remain poor, why busy people stay stuck, why effort so often fails to produce results. Understanding these mistakes is as important as understanding the correct practice, for you cannot do the right thing effectively if you are simultaneously doing the wrong thing. The first and most devastating mistake, the jamming signal I promised to reveal, is what we will call disconnected action. This is action taken without the vision, physical movement performed while the mental pattern is absent. It is the body going through motions while the mind is empty, fearful, worried, or simply elsewhere. This type of action looks like work, feels like effort, and exhausts like labor, but it has no magnetic power whatsoever. It does not receive because it is not connected to the drawing force. It is the net being waved above the water while the line and bait lie unused. There are no fish to catch because no fish have been drawn. Consider what happens when you work hard but your mind is filled with anxiety about money, with doubt about whether your efforts will ever pay off, with resentment about your situation, with fear about your future. Your body may be performing tasks, may be putting in hours, may be doing all the external things that look like productive activity, but your mind is not holding the vision. Your consciousness is not aligned with abundance. Your mental pattern is one of scarcity and struggle. In this state, your actions are just physical noise, meaningless movement through space. They cannot receive the wealth that thought draws because there is no thought drawing wealth. There is only thought reinforcing poverty. This is why so many people who work harder than anyone else remain poorer than those who seem to work less. The quantity of physical effort is not the determining factor. The quality of consciousness within that effort is everything. A person who works 4 hours in perfect alignment, holding the vision, maintaining faith, acting as a conscious receiver, will accomplish more reception than a person who works 16 hours in disconnection, worry, and fear. It is not a matter of fairness or justice in any human sense. It is simply the mechanics of how the manifestation system works. Action without vision is not receiving action. It is just motion, and motion without purpose accomplishes nothing. Think of it this way. You might run around your house all day, moving from room to room, picking things up and putting them down, opening and closing cabinets, straightening and rearranging. You would be very busy, very active, very tired by evening. But if you never thought to unlock the door when the delivery person knocked, all your activity would have accomplished exactly nothing in terms of receiving your package. The running around was disconnected from the actual receiving function. Similarly, your daily work and effort may be intense and sincere, but if it is disconnected from conscious vision and faith, it is not receiving action. It is just running around the house while the package sits outside. The tragic element of disconnected action is that it feeds on itself. When you work hard without receiving results, you become more anxious, more doubtful, more fearful. This increased negativity further disconnects your action from the drawing power of thought, making your action even less effective. So you work harder, trying to compensate with quantity for what you lack in quality, and the increased quantity of disconnected effort produces even more exhaustion and even fewer results. This downward spiral can continue until you collapse from burnout, still wondering why the universe has not rewarded your dedication. The universe was trying to reward it. You were just not in position to receive because your action was disconnected from your vision. The solution to disconnected action is not to stop acting, but to reconnect your action to your thought. Before you begin any work, recall your vision. See clearly in your mind the wealth you are receiving. Feel the gratitude as if the delivery has already occurred. Align your consciousness with abundance and success. Then, maintaining this mental state, engage in your physical action. Let every movement be an expression of the faith you hold mentally. Let every task be performed with the consciousness of a receiver, accepting their good. This connection between thought and action creates the complete circuit. The drawing power of thought and the receiving power of action become unified in a single process, and manifestation occurs. The second fatal mistake is trying to do tomorrow's work, which is the attempt to force receiving, to accelerate the timeline, to do too much too fast in an effort to rush abundance into your life. This mistake comes from a good impulse, the desire for your dreams to manifest quickly, but it produces terrible results. When you try to do tomorrow's work today, you stress your system, exhaust your energy, and paradoxically close the very channel you are trying to open. The universe delivers in its own perfect timing, and your attempt to rush that timing signals a lack of trust that disrupts the delivery process. Trying to do tomorrow's work looks like overwhelm, like burnout, like taking on more tasks than you can perform with excellence, like racing through activities without the consciousness that makes them effective. It comes from the belief that you must make manifestation happen through sheer force of effort, that if you just do enough, push enough, sacrifice enough, the universe will have to respond. But this belief is the old competitive thinking dressed in new clothes. It assumes scarcity, assumes you must fight for your share, assumes that abundance will not come unless you force it to come. And assumptions like these send signals that attract the very scarcity they assume. You only need to receive what is available today. Tomorrow's deliveries will arrive tomorrow, and you will receive them then. Today's deliveries are arriving today, and your task is to receive them with full presence and excellence. When you scatter your energy across past regrets, future anxieties, and an overwhelming pile of tasks you cannot possibly complete, you are not present to receive what is actually arriving in this moment. The delivery person knocks. You are too busy panicking about future deliveries to answer. The opportunity presents itself. You are too exhausted from overwork to recognize it. The channel is there. You have clogged it with excessive effort that blocks rather than opens. The remedy for this mistake is to accept the sufficiency of today's action. Do what is before you today. Do it with complete presence and excellence, and release the future to take care of itself. Trust that the drawing power of your thought is working continuously, bringing tomorrow's abundance into position for tomorrow's receiving. Trust that by receiving today's portion fully, you are preparing yourself to receive tomorrow's portion when it arrives. Trust that the universe knows the right pace of delivery and does not need you to try to accelerate it through frantic effort. This trust is not passivity, it is wisdom. It allows you to act with the calm power of alert readiness rather than the scattered weakness of desperate rushing. Wallace D. Wattles left us with guidance so clear, so practical, so directly applicable that it serves as a beacon when confusion threatens to obscure our path. His words on this matter deserve extended contemplation, for they contain the distilled essence of how to engage action correctly. He wrote, and I will expand upon his instruction, that whatever your action is to be, it is evident that you must act now. This is not a suggestion to be considered alongside other suggestions. It is an evident necessity that flows from the nature of reality itself. The present moment is the only moment, Action is possible only in the present moment, therefore you must act now or not act at all. He continued by noting that you cannot act where you are not. This seems obvious to the point of being unnecessary to state, yet how often do we mentally try to act somewhere other than where we are? We fantasize about the actions we would take if we had more money, more time, more resources, more favorable circumstances. We project ourselves into imagined situations and perform imagined actions there, while our actual bodies remain motionless in our actual circumstances. This mental projection is not action, it is fantasy. And fantasy, however pleasant, does not receive. You can only act where you are, which is here. You can only act when you are, which is now. Act here and now, or accept that you are not acting at all. Wattles then addressed the common excuse for inaction, the desire to wait for a change of environment. He dismissed this excuse with characteristic directness, instructing us not to wait for a change of environment before we act, but to get a change of environment by acting. This is the reversal of ordinary thinking that separates those who manifest from those who merely wish. The ordinary mind says, "When my circumstances change, then I will act accordingly." The enlightened mind says, "By acting accordingly, I will change my circumstances." The ordinary mind waits for external permission to begin. The enlightened mind grants itself permission through action and thereby creates the external conditions that the ordinary mind was waiting for. This instruction cuts through the endless postponement that keeps so many people trapped in unsatisfactory conditions. You do not need a better job to start acting in the certain way. By acting in the certain way at your current job, you create the conditions for a better job to appear. You do not need more money to begin receiving abundance. By receiving fully the abundance available now, you expand the channel for greater abundance. You do not need any change in your external world to begin. Your action changes your external world. The power is in your hands, literally in your hands, in what your hands do, how they move, what tasks they perform, and with what consciousness. Use that power now in this environment and watch the environment transform. Acting upon this guidance requires releasing the need to have everything figured out before you move. You do not need to see the whole staircase to take the first step. You do not need to understand exactly how your action will lead to your desired outcome to act with faith that it will. The mechanism of manifestation is not fully visible to the conscious mind. It operates through channels and connections that you cannot trace until after the fact. Your task is not to understand the mechanism, but to engage it. Act now. Act here. Act on your present business. Act with faith and excellence, and allow the mechanism to work through your action even though you cannot see it working. The great comfort in Wattles' instruction is that it makes the path simple, even if not easy. You do not need esoteric knowledge or special abilities. You do not need to master complex techniques or attain elevated spiritual states. You need to act now, here, on what is before you with consciousness and faith. That is all. That is everything. The simplicity is not a limitation but a liberation. Anyone can act now. Anyone can bring presence to their current tasks. Anyone can refuse to wait for changed circumstances and instead become the changer of circumstances through action. The door to receiving stands open to all who will walk through it. To seal this understanding into permanent comprehension, let us examine it through the lens of a physical phenomenon that makes the mechanics undeniably clear. Consider the fundamental nature of an electrical circuit, a system so basic that it illuminates universal principles of flow and reception. In any electrical circuit, you require two poles, a positive pole and a negative pole. Neither pole alone produces power. The positive pole does not light the bulb. The negative pole does not light the bulb. Only the completed circuit, with both poles engaged and connected, allows current to flow and produce the desired effect. Disconnect either pole and the circuit opens. The current stops, the bulb goes dark. It matters not at all how strong the positive pole might be. Without the negative pole completing the circuit, no power flows. In the circuit of manifestation, thought functions as the positive pole. It generates the attractive force, creates the potential difference between where you are and where you desire to be, initiates the movement of creative energy toward your goal. Your clear vision, held with faith and gratitude, establishes a powerful positive pole that begins drawing your desires from the formless into the formed. This pole is essential. Without it, there is nothing to attract, nothing to move, nothing to manifest. But the positive pole alone, no matter how intensely charged, cannot complete the process. The circuit remains open, the power cannot flow, the light cannot shine. Action functions as the negative pole, the receiving terminal that completes the circuit and allows the accumulated potential to become actual current. When you engage in conscious, faith-filled action, you close the circuit. The energy that has been building on the positive side now has somewhere to flow. The wealth that has been accumulating in the formless now has a channel into the formed. The manifestation that has been potential now becomes actual. This is not metaphor or analogy. It is the precise description of how the process works. Without the negative pole of action, the positive pole of thought generates potential that never converts to power. Consider how this explains the frustration of pure thinkers who never see results. They have charged the positive pole magnificently. Through dedicated visualization, they have created enormous potential difference. Their desires are vividly clear, their faith is strong, their mental patterns are aligned with abundance. But they have disconnected the negative pole. They do not act. They wait for the universe to somehow complete the circuit for them. And so the potential builds but never flows. They feel the build-up, they sense that something should happen. They can almost taste the manifestation. But the circuit remains open, and no amount of additional positive charging can change that. Only closing the circuit through action allows the flow to begin. Similarly, consider the frustration of pure workers who toil without results. They have engaged the negative pole with tremendous dedication. Through relentless physical effort, they have created what should be a perfect receiving terminal. Their actions are constant, their work is hard, their hands are never idle. But they have neglected the positive pole. They have no clear vision. Their thought is confused or fearful. Their mental pattern generates no attractive force, and so they stand with a perfectly functional receiving terminal connected to nothing. There is no potential difference drawing abundance toward them. There is only empty action grasping at empty space. They are tired, they are frustrated, they work harder, but still nothing comes because there is nothing being attracted to come. The science of getting rich requires both poles engaged in proper relationship. Thought charges the positive pole and draws. Action engages the negative pole and receives. Together, they complete the circuit and allow the power of wealth to flow. This is why Wattles insisted on both, why he refused to let his readers neglect either side of the equation. He understood, perhaps through intuition or perhaps through observation, the circuit nature of manifestation. He knew that potential without flow is useless, that flow without potential is impossible. His teaching is a teaching of circuit completion, and those who apply it fully experience the power flowing through their lives. When you understand this electrical model, you stop asking why your thinking has not produced results. You recognize that thinking alone cannot produce results any more than a positive pole alone can light a bulb. You stop asking why your working has not produced results. You recognize that working alone cannot produce results any more than a negative pole alone can generate current. You begin asking the productive question, how can I complete the circuit? How can I engage both poles in proper relationship? How can I think clearly enough to charge the positive and act consciously enough to receive on the negative? This question leads directly to results. The electrical model also reveals why disconnected action fails so completely. When you act without holding the vision, you are in effect connecting the negative pole to nothing. There is no positive charge on the other end. There is no potential difference to create flow. There is only the negative terminal waving in empty space. This is why workers who have no vision, no mental pattern of success, no thought aligned with abundance, can labor endlessly without reward. They are trying to complete a circuit that has only one pole connected. The universe is not withholding their good out of cruelty. There is simply no circuit through which good can flow. Connect the positive pole through proper thought, and suddenly the same action produces results. Equally, the model reveals why thought without action generates frustration rather than fulfillment. The positive pole is charging, potential is building, Attractive force is increasing. Everything on the thought side is working perfectly. But if there is no action, no negative pole, the circuit cannot complete. The potential has nowhere to go. It builds and builds, creating an uncomfortable pressure, a sense that something should be happening, but is not. This is the frustration of the visualizer who visualizes but never moves, the believer who believes but never acts. The pressure they feel is real. It is the pressure of accumulated potential with no release valve. Action opens the valve, completes the circuit, releases the pressure into actual flow. Let this model settle into your understanding until it becomes second nature. You are not fighting against a hostile universe. You are learning to work with a universe that operates by clear principles. The principle is circuit completion. The method is thought plus action. The result is power flowing, wealth manifesting, dreams becoming reality. It is all logical, all orderly, all accessible to anyone who will understand and apply the principles. The electricity of abundance is available to all. You need only complete the circuit to receive its benefits. Theory reaches its fullest value when illuminated by example. And so consider the story of a writer whose journey illustrates perfectly the mechanics we have been discussing. This writer held a vision of producing a best-selling book, a work that would touch millions of lives and generate substantial wealth in the process. The vision was clear. The writer could see the book on shelves, could feel the satisfaction of holding the finished copy, could imagine the readers whose lives would be changed. This mental work was sincere and sustained. The positive pole was charging with considerable power. But for years, the writer waited. Waited for inspiration to strike with irresistible force. Waited for a publisher to somehow discover the unwritten manuscript. Waited for circumstances to arrange themselves favorably without any action being required. Waited, in short, for the circuit to complete itself through some mysterious operation that required no engagement of the negative pole. The positive pole continued charging. The vision remained clear. The faith was maintained. But no book was written, no pages accumulated, no physical evidence of the mental vision appeared in the material world. The writer grew frustrated, wondering why the universe did not respond to such dedicated visualization. Then this writer encountered Wattles' teaching and understood for the first time the necessity of action to complete the manifestation circuit. The understanding was transformative, but not immediately comfortable. It required the writer to stop waiting and start doing, to stop dreaming about the book and start writing it, to engage the negative pole of physical action even when inspiration seemed absent and circumstances seemed unfavorable. This was a significant shift and it required courage, but the writer understood now that waiting was not faith, but fear, that passivity was not patience, but disconnection. The writer made a simple commitment, 1 page every day. Not brilliant pages necessarily, not inspired pages, not pages that would surely make the bestseller list, simply 1 page, written with the faith that these pages were forming a bestseller, completed with the consciousness of reception rather than struggle. Each day the writer sat down and connected the negative pole, engaging action while holding the vision, completing the circuit through the simple discipline of putting words on paper. The act was small, the consistency was powerful. Day after day, page after page, the circuit remained complete and the current flowed. What happened next demonstrates exactly how manifestation operates when the circuit is closed. Through the daily action of writing, through the physical engagement with the work, the writer began to occupy space differently. Coffee shops became writing locations, regular schedules emerged. The writer became visible as a writer, not just in self-identification, but in physical presence in the world. An editor happened to be in the same coffee shop one morning, noticed the dedicated figure hunched over pages, struck up a conversation, and discovered a project that aligned with what their publishing house was seeking. What the writer had been waiting years for the universe to deliver appeared within months of engaging consistent action. The crucial understanding is that this meeting was not coincidence or luck in any random sense. It was the inevitable result of circuit completion. The writer's thought had been drawing this opportunity for years, charging the positive pole, creating attractive force that was calling editors and publishers and opportunities into motion. But none of those elements could connect with a writer who sat at home waiting. They could only connect with a writer who was in action, who was present in the field of engagement, who was actively receiving. The editor was drawn to that coffee shop just as surely as the writer was. The thought forces of both parties were creating convergence. But convergence requires both parties to be in motion, to be available, to be where the meeting can occur. Had the writer continued waiting for circumstances to change before acting, that editor would have walked into and out of that coffee shop without any connection being made. The opportunity would have brushed past without landing, like a delivery package returned, because no one opened the door. The positive pole would have continued charging uselessly while the negative pole remained disconnected. The circuit would have stayed open, and the writer would have added this non-meeting to the mounting evidence that the universe was ignoring their vision. But by acting, by simply writing one page daily, the writer completed the circuit and became available to receive what thought had drawn. This story is not unique. It is the universal pattern of how manifestation works. The specifics vary infinitely, but the structure remains constant. Thought draws, action receives, vision charges the positive pole, engagement connects the negative. When both are operating in harmony, the circuit completes and power flows. The miraculous meeting, the lucky break, the unexpected opportunity. These are all simply the points where the current completes its flow, made possible because someone was acting, was present, was available, had closed the circuit through conscious engagement with their present business. You stand now at the threshold of a transformed understanding, one that reveals your true nature in the manifestation process. You are not a passive recipient waiting for a capricious universe to bestow or withhold at its whim, nor are you a lonely struggler attempting to force abundance into existence through sheer personal effort. You are something far more powerful and far more beautiful. You are a co-creator, a partner in the dance of manifestation, a collaborator in the great work of bringing thought into form. The universe moves wealth toward you. You move yourself toward the wealth. When these two movements converge, when your receptive action meets the universe's generous giving, the transaction completes and abundance changes hands. This understanding dissolves both the arrogance of pure action and the passivity of pure thought. You do not pretend that your effort alone creates wealth. You acknowledge the vast creative intelligence that responds to your vision and orchestrates circumstances beyond your comprehension. But neither do you pretend that you have no role to play. You accept your responsibility to engage the physical plane with conscious action, to be present and available, to complete the circuit that allows receiving to occur. You are neither master nor servant but partner, neither god nor beggar but co-creator. This balanced identity positions you perfectly for the flow of abundance. When you act from this identity, every action takes on new significance. You are not merely doing tasks, you are participating in a cosmic collaboration. You are not merely going through motions, you are fulfilling your essential role in a process that requires your unique contribution. The universe has done and is doing its part, bringing opportunities to your door through channels visible and invisible. Your part is to be at the door, to be alert and ready, to open and receive. This is not burden but privilege, not obligation but honor. You have been invited into partnership with the creative force of reality itself, and your daily actions are your acceptance of that invitation. The meeting point where you stand is the most potent location in existence. Here, thought becomes thing. Here, invisible becomes visible. Here, potential becomes actual. Every human being has access to this meeting point. It is the native ground of our existence as beings who think and act, who envision and engage, who dream and do. But most people never occupy this point consciously. They either think without acting or act without thinking, staying perpetually on one side or the other of the bridge. By understanding what you now understand, you can station yourself at the center of the bridge, at the exact point where the two worlds touch, and facilitate the crossing of wealth from one realm to the other. This is the synthesis of power, thought and action unified, drawing and receiving coordinated positive pole and negative pole connected in complete circuit. When you operate this way, you access the full force available for manifestation. You are not working at half power with one pole disconnected. You are not generating potential that never becomes actual. You are not acting in a vacuum without attractive force. You are complete, whole, integrated, unified in your approach to wealth. And from this wholeness, abundance flows naturally, almost inevitably, because you have aligned yourself with the actual mechanics of how abundance manifests. Let these words penetrate to the deepest levels of your being. The package has arrived. Not will arrive someday, not might arrive if you are lucky, not is thinking about arriving when conditions are right. Has arrived. The universe has responded to your thought, has honored your vision, has moved your desires from the formless into form, and transported them to the threshold of your physical existence. The delivery has been made. Your fortune waits just outside your door, right now in this moment as you absorb these words. It has always been closer than you realized. You have been separated from it only by a locked door, only by a failure to engage the receiving action, only by the absence of completing the circuit. Do not let it sit there. Do not let another day pass while your abundance waits on the doorstep and you remain inside, visualizing what you could have if only the universe would deliver. The universe has delivered. Your task now is to receive. Stand up from wherever you are sitting, metaphorically if not literally. Rise from the posture of waiting into the posture of action. Move from the position of hoping to the position of receiving. The door is in front of you. The key is in your hand. The package waits. This is not a future event but a present reality. Act with faith and let that faith transform the quality of everything you do. When you wash the dishes, wash them as a receiving action, as an engagement with your present business that keeps the channel open. When you answer emails, answer them as a receiver, connecting with potential channels of abundance. When you drive your car, drive as someone who is actively positioning themselves to receive what is arriving. When you perform the most mundane task in your current work, perform it with the spirit of a master who knows that excellence in small things opens doors to excellence in large things. Let there be no action in your day that is disconnected, no task performed without consciousness, no movement made without the awareness that you are receiving. Do the work of today with the spirit of a master, not with the exhaustion of a slave. There is a vast difference between these two, though the external actions might look similar. The slave works because they must, resenting each task, counting each minute, feeling victimized by circumstance. The master works because they understand, engaging each task as meaningful, experiencing each minute as opportunity, feeling empowered by understanding. Both wash dishes, answer emails, perform tasks. But the slave's actions are disconnected from any vision and produce only tiredness. The master's actions are connected to clear purpose and produce reception. Choose to be the master. You have earned this choice through your willingness to receive this teaching. Open the door and welcome your fortune home. It has traveled far to reach you, has navigated countless channels, has assembled itself from formless possibility into tangible opportunity. It has responded to your call, followed the signal of your thought, arrived at the coordinates of your existence. And now it stands at the threshold, waiting for you to complete the transaction that only you can complete. The universe cannot open the door from the outside. That is not how manifestation works. You must open it from the inside, through your action, through your presence, through your willingness to receive. Open it now. Welcome what has come. Take possession of what is already yours. I offer you now a practical challenge that will anchor this teaching in lived experience. The Open Door Challenge. For one complete day, from the moment you wake until the moment you sleep, treat every single action you perform as the specific physical act of turning a key and opening a door to receive your wealth. Every action without exception. Washing your face in the morning, you are turning the key. Preparing your breakfast, you are opening the door. Driving to work or commuting by any means, you are walking through the threshold to receive. Every task at your job, every interaction with another person, every mundane necessity of daily life, each one is the specific act that receives your abundance. Do each of these actions with complete focus and excellence. not the scattered, disconnected, going through motions quality of ordinary activity. The focused, present, conscious quality of someone who knows that this very action is the receiving mechanism. Wash the dishes with excellence, giving full attention to each plate, each glass, each motion. Write each email with excellence, choosing words carefully, bringing presence to communication. Drive with excellence, alert and smooth and conscious. Work with excellence, treating every task as worthy of your best effort. Feel the difference between have to do and get to receive. One phrase carries the energy of resentment and burden. The other carries the energy of gratitude and opportunity. This challenge is not merely an exercise, it is the practice of everything you have learned. It integrates the understanding of the two planes, the necessity of action to receive what thought has drawn. It implements the state of alert readiness, transforming ordinary activity into conscious reception. It applies the three rules. You are acting now. You are acting on your present business. You are making each act a success. It connects your actions to your vision, preventing the fatal mistake of disconnection. It keeps your action measured and present, preventing the other fatal mistake of trying to do tomorrow's work. It completes the circuit by engaging the negative pole while the positive pole of your thought continues to charge. At the end of this challenge day, notice what you notice. Notice how you feel, more energized or more drained. Notice what occurred. Were there moments of unusual connection, unexpected opportunity, surprising flow? Notice your relationship to your activities. Did they feel different when performed as receiving actions rather than obligatory motions? The evidence will speak for itself. You will have experienced, in one compressed day, the difference between living as a disconnected worker and living as a conscious receiver. You will have proven to yourself that the mechanics are real, that the circuit completion produces flow. If you are ready to complete the circuit and physically hold the wealth you have imagined for so long, if you are ready to stop waiting and start receiving, if you are ready to transform your actions from random motion into purposeful reception, then the path forward is clear. Subscribe to the Master's legacy and continue learning the secrets that transform dreamers into receivers. Each teaching builds upon the last. Each master adds a piece to the puzzle. Each lesson brings you closer to the full mastery of manifestation that is your birthright. You have learned today the secret of receiving, the missing link that completes the process. Tomorrow, more secrets await. The door stands before you. The key is in your hand. The package waits on the threshold. Open the door and receive.